So we'll go ahead and get started. First of all, welcome. My name is Eric Ewald. I am a principal in the Iowa City Community School District. Van Allen Elementary is the elementary school where I'm a principal. It is a pre-K through 6th grade elementary school of about 650 students. This is my second year at Van Allen and my 6th year as an elementary school principal overall. Thank you for coming. Appreciate everybody spending their session after lunch with me. I'm going to talk about like the title of my session, what did you do at school today? Really it's about communication and communicating with the families that we serve. And you know, like the keynote talked about this morning, I think in my mind that's kind of my unfair advantage as an elementary school principal. That's something that I think I do pretty well. Definitely, you know, always room to improve and room to grow, but it's definitely a priority of mine and something that I think I'm relatively good at. My Twitter handle is up there. That's the first one, Eric Ewald _Iowa. My school's Twitter handle, Van Allen _ICCSD. That's up there as well. And then the two hashtags underneath there, Dads as Principals. I don't know if you guys, how active you guys are on social media, on Twitter, but Dads as Principals is kind of a group that started more or less as a joke actually this past summer at the National Principals Conference when a group of 5 of us principals who are also dads just kind of started sharing some stuff with that hashtag, and it kind of took off. You don't have to be a principal to share to that hashtag. We have dads of all sorts of occupations that are sharing to that. We encourage anybody to share to that. There's a similar group, similar hashtag, similar account called Moms as Principals, same thing. Just kind of sharing that perspective from both roles as an educator and as a parent. I bring that up because the picture on the right of the screen up there, those are my 2 children. Ryan is my son. He is 6, gonna turn 7 on Saturday, actually. So pretty much he's been alive since the time that I became an elementary school principal. And just having that in the back of my mind has really changed my perspective in regards to the decisions I make and the things that I do and what I want as a parent, what I want to know, what I want the school to communicate with me in regards to, and just what I want for him and his education and his schooling as a learner as well. So that's been really influential to me. My daughter, Olivia, she's not in school quite yet. She's 2 in the picture, but she's 3 now, and she'll be going to school here before we know it. So, and then finally, before I move on, that bottom hashtag, that's our school Twitter, or our school's hashtag, Van Allen Pride. Like I said, I work at Van Allen Elementary, and our hashtag that we use to share things with is Van Allen Pride. So, before I get started, the session is what did you do at school today? Just show of hands out of curiosity, how many people in here are parents? Almost everybody. Great. And even if you're not a parent, you know, how many times have you asked this question to your child? This question gets asked on almost a daily basis. What are some of the more common, more frequent answers that we get when we ask this question? Just shout them out. Nothing. I don't remember. You know, papers. I had PE today. My son loves talking about PE, and that's all he really talks about is PE. So we don't get. I mean, the point is, you know, parents. We ask this question all the time. We've been asking this question all the time. We don't usually get a whole lot of information out of our kids when we ask this question. You know, they say those things. I don't remember. I don't know. Nothing. You know, you guys know that question. You guys know that response. But I think, especially today, with all the tools that we have available to us, I mean, we can control that narrative as a school. I mean, we can ask, just like as teachers, I mean, we know to use, sentence starters and scaffold questions to our students so that we can get better responses. I mean, when we share as a school, whether that's in your classroom or as a school as a whole, I mean, we can prompt parents to give them things to ask about. So it's not just as generic as this, but something much more specific, which then in turn, I mean, gets a whole lot more from your child when they are answering that question. There are, I would say, when thinking about myself as an educator, myself as a school leader, there are 4 things that I really value more than anything else. 2 of those things are up here, and technology is not one of them. Technology is just the tool that makes communicating a whole lot easier. Technology is just a tool that makes communicating a whole lot more efficient for us. I mean, we're all super busy. None of us have, loads of extra time on our hands, so there are tools that we can use to make communicating super slick, super easy, make our jobs easier, which is, I mean, nobody's turning down our jobs becoming a little bit easier. But the 4 things that I value are communication and relationships. Those 2 things go hand in hand. I mean, you can't have good relationships if you're not communicating. And, if you're communicating with people that you don't have a good relationship with, it's going to be interpreted in a whole bunch of different ways. And it may not be interpreted necessarily how you want it to be interpreted. So those are the 2. Just FYI, they don't really play into this presentation as much. A little bit. Attitude's another thing that I think is extremely important. Whole lots of things happen to us as educators, as people in general, and we don't have control over a lot of those things. One thing we certainly always have control over, whether we choose to admit it or not, is the attitude that we keep. And then the 4th thing that I really value is learning. And I'm not talking about just learning for our students within our schools. I'm talking about learning for everybody, especially us as adults within our schools, and then modeling that for our staff in my position and for our students as well. And some of the stuff that we'll get into here in a little bit is a result of myself being a learner first and foremost, myself being willing to try new things and step outside of my comfort zone to try something new that may or may not have an impact on our school and our school community. But anyways, relationships is first and foremost. I mean, you can't have an effective school, a successful school, if you don't have relationships with those people that you're working with, whether that's the students within your school, the staff within your school, the parents and families of your school, the community stakeholders. I mean, you have to have those positive relationships to really get accomplished what it is that you want to get accomplished. And relationships, you can build relationships through, proactive communication, and positive communication is a great way to establish relationships. And thinking about my role as a principal and how it's evolved over time, from when I first became a principal 6 years ago until now, I don't have as many conversations with angry or frustrated parents as I once did. And, that may be for a variety of different reasons. However, one of the reasons why I think that is because I am so proactive with positive communication to the parents that I work with. And that may not be the case, but I think it certainly doesn't hurt to constantly be sharing positives and constantly be sharing some of the things that we're doing. It definitely buys myself or the classroom teacher, if they're the ones that are doing it, a whole lot of built-up credibility with the parents when there is something negative that ends up happening, because inevitably something negative will end up happening. If you've built up that relationship and done lots of these positive things prior, that outcome is going to be a whole lot more positive. Another, just show of hands, how many people use any of these tools? Almost everybody. How many people use these tools for their professional benefit? Okay. You know, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, you know, some of the people, some of the things that I've been reading, some of the presenters that have been talking, you know, some of these things are even outdated right now. You know, if you were to ask our students, you know, Snapchat would definitely have more of an influence than some of the other things that are up there. I use Snapchat. I'm not as familiar with Snapchat. Snapchat has, last time I checked, some filtering and restrictions within our district that these three things don't have, but I think Snapchat could be another additional tool that would be really beneficial in regards to sharing our school's story. But when you guys think of these social media tools, I mean, what are some of the things that you guys, what are some of the things that you guys think of when you think of using Twitter and Instagram and Facebook or even Snapchat? I mean, what comes to mind? Go ahead.
I run the school Facebook page, and I think the adults use Facebook.
Absolutely.
We older folks do. It's slower, you know, the Snapchat
Sure.
thing. I'm way beyond that. Anyway, but the Facebook page for our school, I communicate everything that's going on. You know, the other day we had a water main break. That was the fastest way. And it's amazing how many people check that, looking for what's going on in the school. And they love the pictures of their kids and what's going on in the day.
Absolutely.
I have a private Facebook page for our classroom, and I'm able to share that with parents and along with grandparents, post pictures of what we're doing, what projects we're doing. Also reminders, you know, tomorrow we're starting a new unit with sound, and I want them to bring in Kleenex boxes so we can make, you know, a guitar or something. I'm going to post that tonight, and tomorrow I'll have 25,000 Kleenex boxes in my classroom. So it's just quick and easy, and all the parents and even grandparents in California have it that they can see their grandkids. So.
Other thoughts? Yeah.
I do Facebook Live a lot with my kids. I teach family consumer science, and so a lot of people think that that's not happening in schools anymore. They don't know what it is. So a lot of times if my high schoolers will be cooking something, I'll just let one of them go around with my phone and we'll go Facebook Live to show not only like people on Facebook, but the community, what we're doing, those 21st century skills. And also I have a Twitter page, but I'm a young teacher, only 22. So my kids always want to follow me on social media, so it kind of saves me like, oh yeah, follow my teacher Twitter. So things like that.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, Facebook Live, you know, we did a couple of our concerts last year were during the day, so it's especially harder for parents to get off work and come to school to see the concert, and, you know, thinking about grandparents that want to see the concert, but maybe they live far away. We just put that up on Facebook Live, and that's not the only tool for stuff like that, but there are ways to get at our audience. And that's part of it too, to kind of jump ahead a little bit. I mean, part of this was when I first became a principal, and when my son first started school, we would, in preschool, we would drop him off at 7 a.m. At the before and after school program for preschool. They had wraparound, all day wraparound. We would drop him off at 7, and some days it wouldn't be until 5 o'clock until we'd pick him back up again. And, you know, that's a long time. And at the time I was working, 30 minutes away from where he was going to school. And so it wasn't like I could just pop in or, you know, come over. And as a principal, you know, as much as I would like to, I'm not always able to, like when they're having their big events at school. It's typically when we're having our big events at my school. So it's not like I can duck out of my school to go to his school. But these are tools that give not just me, but all parents windows into what our kids are doing during the school day. And, you know, as a parent, there's nothing I like more than seeing pictures of my children during the school day when I'm not around, whether that's my son at school or my daughter at daycare. I want to see pictures of them doing things, interacting with their peers, smiling, so that I know that they're having a good time. We can communicate lots and lots and lots through like newsletters and stuff like that, and that's great, that's important, we should do that, but that doesn't give us as parents the whole entire picture. I mean, that doesn't give us the body language that our children are demonstrating. That doesn't give us, the kids in the background that may or may not be their friends that they want to invite over for play dates and things like that. Pictures are just so powerful and telling in regards to everything that's going on that just a newsletter doesn't capture all of that. Newsletters are great. I use newsletters, but that's just a part of the communication. I think that, parents love feedback that I've gotten. Parents love seeing pictures of their kids. Right now, like I said, my son's in first grade. His teacher's on Seesaw, and so it's super nice when all of a sudden I get a notification on my phone that something's been posted to, that his Seesaw journal, and I can, it's just a window into what he's doing because I can't be there, and I, like to be informed, and lots of parents are in that same boat. They can't, just because we can't be at the school doesn't mean we don't care, doesn't mean we don't know, but there are millions of different tools, and I'll share some of them that we use here in a minute, that give us that access and give us that window. So these are three of the basic tools that I use. Instagram, and I run them all from our schools as a school. It's just kind of something that, like I said, I think it's my unfair advantage. It's something that I like doing. I'm in classrooms all the time, so I'm taking pictures all the time, and so I'm just sharing those pictures that I see. And at the same token, for those of you that are principals right now, when you share a picture of something going on in somebody else's classroom, that's feedback not just to that teacher, but feedback you're celebrating that teacher in front of a whole larger audience, which as a teacher, I would think that would feel pretty gratifying. Instagram, some of our older students within our building we have a lot of our older students that like our Instagram and follow our Instagram. So, kind of a side project that I'm working on is how can we give the ownership of those accounts to some of our older students, and how can, I, as the principal and somebody that's on social media quite a bit, how can I model for them what not just appropriate digital citizenship looks like, but what, take it a step further and what appropriate digital leadership looks like, and how can they help, narrate the story within our school, because ultimately, it's not my school, it's their school. And they're the ones that we're there for, so they should be the ones telling that story. I haven't figured out, the best way to do that yet, but that's something that I'm working on, and I've kind of been working on for several years now, so it's easier said than done, I think. But and then Twitter. Twitter started for me as just like as a professional learning tool. That's how I get, that's how I get most of my professional development, is through Twitter. And it's, anytime, anywhere, on demand in regards to the things that I want to be learning about. So that's my plug for Twitter. If you guys aren't on Twitter as professional educators, I would encourage you to get on. And I know that it's overwhelming at first, but everybody starts with the same amount of followers when they first sign up for Twitter, and that's 0. So everybody's got to start somewhere, and like I said, but find something to use to connect and grow and share. This is probably my favorite quote. I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with George Kiros, but I just love that when he talks about, we need to make the positive so loud that the negative are almost impossible to hear. So much is said about our schools. People are talking about our schools all the time within our community, and some of it's good, some of it's not as good. I think it's our job to kind of narrate that story that we want told about our schools. And if we're not telling that story, if we're not sharing that, we're leaving it up to chance, we're leaving it up to every other person out there to say whatever they want. So when we do positive things, we should celebrate ourselves and share those positive things. you know, one of the things in my Twitter bio talks about I label myself as the chief storyteller of our school. I think that that's an important job of mine, to control that narrative that we want people spreading when they are talking about our school. You know, that starts with me, and hopefully it has a trickle-down effect from there. You know, I think that George also talks about Twitter. The Twitter handle is for communication, and the Twitter hashtag is for community. And, you know, so I don't know where everybody's at in regards to Twitter, but when you put in that hashtag, you know, I can put in that hashtag as a parent in regards to my son's school, the hashtag that they use, and all of a sudden I'm part of that conversation. I'm an equal part of that conversation. And, you know, I've found that, and George talks about, I don't know how many of you guys have ever heard George speak. He was at iTech last year. He was the keynote last year. You know, he talks a lot about, you know, I think that when you're proactive and you're putting your message out there again and again and again, it's positive, positive, positive. You know, I haven't encountered a whole lot of people putting negative stuff out there. I know that that's a worry, that's a fear. It just hasn't happened for me yet. And, you know, that could happen later this afternoon. There's no telling, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. You know, he talks about a story where, you know, he was at a professional development. There were some negative things that were being said, but next thing you knew, there were so many positive things that were being shared and being said that the negative things, I mean, were pretty much at the bottom, and nobody paid any attention to them because of all the positive things that were out there that were being shared. And then tweetable moments, I talked about this a little bit ago, kind of just scratched the surface on it. Tweetable moments allow you to feature teaching and learning daily. Are you intentional about promoting the school's image? You know, I think that not only do parents enjoy seeing pictures of their kids, students more times than not enjoy having their pictures shared as well. You know, we have some digital signage in our office that has kind of our Twitter feeds scrolling through and a picture slideshow scrolling through. There's often times when students will say, if I'm taking pictures, is that going to be on in the office? Am I going to be on TV? You know, they notice what's going on, they see what's going on. Like I said, our students, even our youngest students, they're aware of the role that social media plays in the world. They're aware of, you know, the things that their parents are doing. They're aware that we're on social media, and, you know, what are we doing to influence them in regards to how social media is used? You know, how are we using that to make a positive influence so that they can be leaders in that area, and not just people that are using it maybe for not the best purposes some of the time. Going back just a minute to these three things, I think that it makes a lot of sense that if we're sharing with our parents, that we should share where they're already at. You know, I'm, as a citizen, you know, gone are the days of me waking up and reading the newspaper to get my daily news. You know, that kind of evolved into me waking up and going on the web to different sites to get my news. I don't have to go different places. I mean, all my news comes to me, and it's the things that I want to know about through my Twitter feed or my Instagram feed or my Facebook feed. I mean, it's personalized for me. I don't have to go somewhere else to get that. You know, I think that when we as schools ask our parents to go somewhere else to get the information, they're less likely to go get that information. I mean, we need to take it to them where they're already at. And, you know, maybe within your school community, you've got a large number of people that are on Twitter, and if that's the case, take it there. Maybe you don't have anybody on Twitter, so what's the point of using Twitter? Take it to Facebook. I mean, whatever people are using, I mean, that's where you should be sharing. I think that of these three, like within my school site, probably Instagram is the most popular in regards to where we're sharing things. I share into all three. I've got a system set up so that if I share to one, it just copies to the others. But as far as interactions and responses and likes and whatnot, Instagram is by far the most popular one that we have. I don't know. What are the most popular tools in your guys' areas, districts, that you guys find? Twitter? Really? Where are you at?
Cedar Falls.
Cedar Falls. Do you guys have a school hashtag, a district hashtag?
Yes, every student every day is one of them, and I can't remember what the other one is. And then our individual building has the Tiger Way, which is like our positive behavior support.
Do you have, can I ask, do you have a lot of teachers sharing just
Yep.
through your school, individual teachers?
And like my vice principal just tweeted me back from something I tweeted this morning from here. And I have kids that'll like, I don't know, on a dress up day for homecoming, we took like a class selfie and they all go in and like it.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
I like it.
That's
I
awesome.
actually got rid of my personal Twitter just to have a school Twitter.
Yeah, I balance like 4 different Twitter accounts,
can't
which
do
is
it.
unmanageable. And that's just like an example of that, community and, Twitter and all those things. I mean, allow you to build that. I mean, if I'm a classroom teacher, it's really hard for me to go into your classroom and see what it is that you're doing, especially if we're on opposite ends of the building. Another one of the things that I don't know, I forget if I included it or not, but, if we're all on Twitter, if we're a school and we're all on Twitter and we're all sharing one, one great thing that we've done throughout the day, I can go on at the end of the day and scroll through that and see what everybody in my building is doing that's really great. And, imagine what that's going to do for morale within your building. Imagine what that's going to do for, as a teacher, giving yourself new ideas of new things that you can do, new things that you can try. One of the things that I hate is that excuse that I don't know what's going on the other end of our building. Well, take it upon yourself and find out. I mean, it's out there. You just have to invest a little bit of time, energy, and effort to go to where that's being shared and take it upon yourself to look. But so communicate some more. There are a million different ways that you can communicate. Like I talked about, take it to where your parents already are. That being said, I do use newsletters. I've got a couple newsletters linked on my slideshow, and I think these were shared with in the these aren't the newsletters, but anyways, these were linked in the session resources. But so this is just an example of something that I share with our families and our community. This is all the different ways that we're communicating, and all the different ways that you can get information from us as a school. And it's got our Facebook, our Instagram, Twitter, both as a school and my personal account. Blackboard, that's just like our mass email, auto dial, text message system. We have school newsletters, Reach Jar, which is just kind of like our digital flyer service, digital signage. That's just scrolls on the TV in our front office. We do have a website. I'll be the first to tell you that I'm not a fan of websites. I think they're outdated. I think that people don't want somewhere else to go to get their information. And just my own personal philosophy, websites are a lot to manage. Websites are a lot to keep up and update constantly, continuously, because it's always changing. So it's just not where my priorities are at in regards to communication. But so I've got one of these for both families and community that I just showed you, and then I've got another one, a separate one for for staff, and just different ways that staff can communicate with me, which includes my cell phone number is probably the biggest thing that's different on the two of them. A couple other things as well, but you know, as a principal, I don't like to be in my office. That's not where any of the students are, so I try to be out and about for the majority of the time throughout the day. I know that sometimes that's hard for teachers that are trying to track me down, so you know, shoot me a text. You can have access to me whenever you want if I know that you're looking for me, but I'm not going to be in my office just sitting and waiting for. Go ahead.
So I have a question about like Facebook Live and
Yeah.
group photos, which I've asked about, and they've said, well, we need to have a permission slip.
Sure.
So does your district,
Okay.
does everyone
So-
do a signed one?
Yep, so this is my second year in the Iowa City School District, and last year it was real generic and not a single parent opted out, but they changed the process a little bit this year, so they had to actually click something to make it okay when they were registering for their photo to be shared. But I will tell you that I was proactive with that and sent a message to all the parents in our school saying that, and walked them through, you have to do X, Y, and Z for us to be able to share your student's photograph. We want to share your student's photograph. It's a big part of us telling our school's story, and I want to include your child when it comes time to do that. So we had 550 students. We had like, I don't know, 30 students.
So they had to take steps to opt out.
Right, and a lot of those 30 students weren't necessarily 30 that said no, but 30 that just didn't follow the process and weren't sure, so then we followed up again with them, and so that list has become smaller and smaller. But that is something to, so I have a list of students that I just keep up and I share with the teachers too, that I know that these students can't be photographed, their photograph can't be shared. So when I'm walking around taking pictures, I sometimes have to cross-reference, did I get such and such in this photo, and if I did, well, I can't.
So are teachers allowed to know that list?
Yep, I share that list with teachers too. Yeah. So we have a lot of teachers that do, I would say Instagram is probably the most popular for our teachers as well, which makes sense since it's the most popular for our parents, but different teachers use different things to kind of share within their individual classrooms. From my perspective as a principal, I like Twitter the best, simply because if you're a teacher and you tweet something from an overall school, I can just click retweet and it goes to all of our audience as well. You can do that with Instagram, but it's not as seamless. There's a couple of other extra steps, and it's just not as smooth as just one retweet goes to both audiences. Good question, though. When we think about communication, I think some of the things that we think about, probably one of the first things that we think about is maybe email. And email is something else that I'm not particularly fond of, just because when we think about when email first became a thing and the purpose of email then, it's evolved a whole lot, and gone are the days where people are reading through really long, lengthy emails, yet sometimes people still send really long, lengthy emails, and as educators, we get lots of emails. There's a lot that can get lost when we're sending that much text in an email. One thing that I tell my teachers is that, if there's a problem that you have to communicate with a parent, make a phone call. Don't send an email, just because there's too much that can get misinterpreted, and it can go bad really quickly, and you're going to spend a lot of time trying to draft the perfect email and redraft the perfect email, and then sending the email and losing sleep thinking about the response that you're going to get from that email. I know that it's sometimes difficult and sometimes awkward, but just pick up the phone and have a conversation. It's much quicker, and can problem solve a whole lot faster. Pretty much 5 sentences or less. These are, I myself don't always abide to these, but I try to. Try to keep my emails 5 sentences or less. anything more is a face-to-face conversation or a phone call. Bullet as many things in emails as you can, because long text is just overwhelming to people. And this is a resource. I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with Justin Bader, that kind of just talks about ways to become more efficient with email. I don't know of not very many educators that I talk to enjoy spending time on email. I think that there's a way to make email more efficient for us, that we would, yes please, but there's some good stuff in there. I don't think email is going away, but at the same time, I think as educators we have to find ways to make that more efficient for ourselves, because I don't know about you guys, but next thing you know, you look up and an hour's gone by and you're done nothing but check emails during that time. So these are some of the tools that I've used. I don't use them real frequently. Kind of just play around with them. Some I've used more than others. And I didn't start with using all these at the same time. I mean, thinking back to 6 years ago when I first started as a principal, I was using two things. I started with Facebook, and I started with Blogger, which is a blog. So those were the two things that I used 6 years ago. And as time's gone on, and I've become more comfortable with the tools that I'm using, I just continue to try new things. Some that stick and I continue to use, some that I try one time, and that's kind of it. Just highlight a couple of them. If this, then that. Anybody familiar with if this, then that? Okay, a couple of people maybe. So if this, then that. Like everything that I post on Twitter through our school's Twitter account, through if this, then that, it's a recipe that if I post it on Twitter, it's going to post to our school's Facebook page as well, and I don't have to do anything. It just automatically shows up, which is great. It's really nice. However, the one caution that I would say about if this then that in that particular recipe, and there's lots of things you can do, stuff where like if I share something, you can set it up to go to your Google Drive and all sorts of stuff like that. But like from Twitter to Facebook, like our Facebook posts, because they're not native Facebook posts, they sometimes get buried on people's timelines, and sometimes their Facebook posts that go through Twitter aren't seen like they would be if I was just going onto Facebook and posting. But it does save time nonetheless. Storify is a super cool one. Anybody use Storify? Heard of Storify? So, like every 2 weeks, I'll send out a newsletter. I'll share a newsletter with our families, and I know that not everybody's on Twitter, but I will go on Storify and capture all of our tweets from those past 2 weeks, and typically it's maybe 100 tweets from 2 weeks, and it will put those tweets in a story. It's just like a web page. It's a link that you click on to go to a web page, and then they're all there for people to scroll through. You don't have to have Twitter to access Storify, so you can see everything that we're tweeting without being on Twitter, because maybe for whatever reason I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to sign up for another thing. That makes it all accessible to people even if they don't have Twitter. Flipgrid, at the start of the school year this year, anybody use Flipgrid? A couple people. At the start of the school year this year, we just asked all of our teachers to take 30 seconds and introduce themselves to their students and their families via Flipgrid, and that was a video that we shared out with our school community. So students and parents had a quick introduction from who their child's classroom teacher was going to be that upcoming year. S'more is the platform that I use for my newsletters. I'm a pretty big fan of it. There's a free version and a paid version. I use the paid version. The biggest difference with the paid version and the free version, as far as I know, is that the free version, I think you can have like 3 flyers, and then you have to just keep editing the flyers that you've already created, versus the paid version. I can create as many new flyers as I want. So I like it. I mean, it's pretty visually appealing. There's not to the reader, so that visually appealing stuff is a lot easier to get through. Remind is another one. Text messaging service, able to share text messages with people without them having access to my own personal phone number. I can send them a text and it comes through. And it's even evolved. When they first created it, you couldn't text back, but now it's a two-way communication thing. Works on you can use it on your phone, on a computer. Like I said, Blogger was one of the apps that I first started with, one of the tools that I first started with. I still have, my blog has kind of evolved over time, and it started as me writing about our school and things that we were accomplishing. There wasn't a ton of, just from the statistics of people that were viewing the blog, didn't look like there was a ton of interest. So now my blog's kind of evolved into just my personal learning and reflecting on my own personal learning. So it's changed a little bit over time. This one's called ThingLink, and ThingLink's kind of cool. You can have a picture, and then on the web you can put text on that picture. So I don't think that's linked through here. But so for example, we could have a picture of this room, and then it could show it could have descriptions of different things in regards to what's here, and it just add text to it, so it just becomes kind of a more lively image. That wasn't all of them. Anybody have any questions about any of these?
Does the Storyfy only work with Twitter?
No, I
Can you
don't
do that
think
like
so.
Facebook or any?
I've only used it for Twitter,
Okay.
but I'm not certain. I don't know. I've got, so one of the things up there, Erasma, I'll let you guys have these. This was kind of like my pet project that I worked on over the summer. And it's like, this is not my original idea. I'm not that smart, but Brad Gustafson, who's a principal in Minnesota, I stole this idea from him. Very few of my ideas are actually original ideas. But it's a baseball card, it's a trading card, and I handed out these to our students on our back to school night. In the bottom and the middle, there's the logo for Erasma. And so this is a card that if you have the Erasma app, it will come to life. And so on the back, it's like a baseball card, it's got some statistics and, I'll pass that down. It's got some statistics and just stuff that was kind of cool to share with our families and our students. But then there's those 3 steps, and so if you download the Erasma app, and then if you have to follow that channel on step 2, which is our school's channel, and then if you aim the viewfinder, it's kind of like a QR code type thing, at this image, it'll come to life, and I'll start talking from the cards. So that's the only thing that I've ever done with Erasma. But it was just a cool thing that I wanted to try and whatnot. So that's part of learning new things and just the excitement of learning new things, and it was something that